Okay, going back to our U.S.-Russia story, the foreign ministers, that's Sergei Lavrov and Mark Rubio, met again in ASEAN on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit, ASEAN foreign ministers meeting in Kuala Lumpur. They had met yesterday also. You know, Trump is trading charges. Russia, Kremlin is saying we are not perturbed. Let him announce what he's announcing. So what does all that mean? What are the Americans trying to tell the Russians here? What kind of a deal are they trying to cut? To talk about more about that, I'm joined by Ambassador C. Rajashekar, former senior diplomat. Thank you, Ambassador Rajashekar, for joining us on the show. If you look at what the Americans are saying, they are saying, well, President Trump is hinting at some kind of sanctions, while Russia seems, defiant, says it doesn't matter to us. We'll await his announcement. We are used to his mood swings. Yet both Rubio and Lavrov are meeting, today for the second day. So what's actually happening there?
Yes, thank you. So this meeting is significant that both sides are meeting, and so that they have direct channel of communication. And this is the second time they're meeting. They met in February earlier, and February the environment was a lot more cordial, more conducive. But this time, there were serious Ukrainian attacks on Russia, and also in the last 48 hours there were huge Russian attacks on Ukraine. And from American perspective, now that they are out of focus, they can shift the focus from Iran, Israel to European theater. Now they would like to put maximum pressure to try to see that they would maximize their position and also end this war. So what is stated by the American Secretary of State is significant. He said he has echoed the frustration and disappointment that war is not coming to an end. This is one side. But he said they did discuss over the 50-minute meeting the way forward, how to make progress, and they agreed to meet again later this summer. And at the same time, the Russian foreign minister also said that they would not like to dramatize the zigzag mood swing, what you said about the American positions. On one hand, the Americans paused supply of weapons, but again, they have resumed supply of weapons to Ukraine. But also in the process, Americans have maximized their position by pushing the NATO, that NATO would receive the weapons for onward transmission to Ukraine. Also, US is trying to push NATO to increase their defense expenditure to 5%.
We'll talk about what US is trying to do to NATO, but let's first talk about that. When he says that first he chided Zelensky, then he's humoring him by giving him more weapons. He tried to put out an olive branch to President Putin. Now he says, well, he's been just flattering me and I'm not happy with him. So what is Donald Trump trying to do here? How is this getting him closer to his aim of getting some kind of a ceasefire?
We see this happening because here is head of state, president directly dealing with important announcements and negotiations and everything. We have seen this in our own case of India-Pakistan. So there is a gap between institutional American stance and American presidential stance. So this is what the Russians had characterized as zigzag. But whatever it is, we have to deal with the reality. So from Russians' point of view, they would like to end the war on their terms, understandably, that they would not like to see Ukraine in NATO or NATO weapons targeting Russia on Ukrainian soil. And they would like to retain the territorial gains they have made, so which is not acceptable to Ukraine. So that's why the summit between Ukrainian President Zelensky and President Trump has failed because the terms proposed are not acceptable to Ukraine. Now, they have both foreign ministers have announced that they have carried each other's proposals back to their capitals to review, to be reviewed by their presidents, and they will resume the negotiations. Understand, although we do not have the real details, despite being pressed, Foreign Secretary of State Rubio has refused to divulge the details, but understandably, first and foremost, they would like to see a reduction of tensions, because what we have seen in the last 2 weeks
No,
is
even if, okay, Ambassador, even if, Lavrov gave Rubio a list of things, in the past they've said that, Trump has himself said that Putin kept flattering me for months. Then he came up with lists of impossible demands and he's ignored my calls for a ceasefire. He'll again say the same thing. He says, well, Lavrov's demands are impossible.
There is also the backdrop, what the US is doing with other countries, which is also equally important. So US has taken on most countries through their tariff, this imposition of tariffs, especially China. So there is a danger that, US-China relations will deteriorate, in which case US desperately need to talk to Russia directly. So that's why they are doing. At the same time, Trump being what he is, he would also like to maximize his position. One, to push NATO to totally take the burden of European defense on their own shoulders, increasing the defense expenditure. At the same time, he would also like to push Russia to the maximum position. In fact, there was also a hint, one, that deal is in the making by President Trump, and also that there may be a conversation or even meeting between the two presidents. I think they're proposing in that direction, based on the counter proposals.
That means Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, you mean?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And Ambassador, what could we expect from him when he says he's going to make a major announcement on Monday? What could we expect in that announcement?
We know this. President Trump is likely to state these dramatizing things, but listen, until there are proposals which are agreeable to Russia and Ukraine and also Europe and US. So we cannot expect dramatic statements. That's what Russians had mentioned. That on one hand, as you said, that US was praising Putin, and at the same time now they are saying frustrated and disappointed. So that's what it is. So to make any serious forward movement, they have to carefully agree, firstly, to ceasefire, and also to discuss how the territorial changes since 2022 have to be treated, and also how to ensure that there is enduring peace. So these are bigger issues, not amenable to one meeting or dramatic statement. They need careful behind-the-scene negotiations. That's what today they had done. They have carried proposals to capital to resume.
Okay. Okay, but that's just you saying Donald Trump style to first, raise the bar, issue threats, and then go back. But doesn't he realize that this may work with the Canadians or, the Brazilians? I don't know, because at least the Brazilians and the Canadians are saying, okay, we'll try and resolve it just diplomatically, even while he's announcing huge tariffs there. But if doesn't he realize this doesn't work with the Russians? The Russians are not even slightly perturbed about his threats.
Yeah, again to quote Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov's words, characterization, he said, Russia would not be perturbed by this zigzag. So that's what precisely they said. They have position. So Russians' bottom line is that they don't want Ukraine in NATO and NATO weapons in Ukraine. That is one. Secondly, also how to regularize the territorial borders. So these two are major issues. On that, Ukraine also has difficulty because they lost a substantial chunk of their territory So this requires patient negotiations based on first ceasefire and reduce tensions. But now what President Trump has done is that he says that they will lift the pause in supply of weapons to Ukraine, and he's also encouraging. He cited some names, Germany and Spain and other countries. They do have Patriot batteries, and they would like this to be transferred to Ukraine. So that may also cause heightened tension rather than lowering the tension.
He's not just giving Patriot, missiles. He's also giving some mid-range rockets to Ukraine via NATO. So, as you rightly say, that this could heighten tensions, and the Russian response could be even more stronger. So, how is he helping his case for a ceasefire?
Precisely. What he's doing is, his style is disruptive. But we have seen disruptive business, but he's disruptive geopolitics. He would like to. So first, he has pushed Ukraine to the extreme, wall. Which requires correction, which you see that resumed defense supplies to Ukraine. Otherwise, they get a crushing defeat and collapse Ukrainian defense. So the matters have reached that state. Now that also US can afford that. It can afford to pay greater attention, having completed the work on Iran-Israel front. Now they are focusing on this. So they would like to push both Europe and Russia towards the ideals, the agenda of the US.
Okay. So anyway, this doesn't augur well for the war finishing anytime soon. And it clearly looks like the negotiations or a negotiated settlement isn't reaching anywhere. We leave it at that. Many thanks, Ambassador Rajashekhar, for joining us and being on the show. Thank you.